in that Swoop here in Accra, about 141 of them, almost 150 of them as well. I have here in the studio Adib Saani. He's Executive Director for the Center for Human Security and Peace Building. Let's have a bit of a conversation about what's happening. Mr. Saani, thank you very much for coming to the studio. Now, I just want to find out, we just received a statement from the police, and that talks about what they're doing, the new strategy. They essentially say that they're taking the fight to the doorstep of the criminals. I want to find out what your assessment of it is. What do you make of it? Well,
it's a good thing. I haven't minced words in the past in criticizing the police for their lack of proactivity, especially with respect to fighting crime in the country. We have, for a very long time now, been so reactive to issues of security. We wait until things get out of hand before we start running helter-skelter, looking for solutions. But on this occasion, the fact that we're taking the fight against crime to the doorsteps of the criminals would send a clear signal to them. Not very long ago, I did an academic paper on people's perceptions about the police. I juxtaposed it with that of the criminals. And it will interest you to note that a lot of Ghanaians feared criminals more than they respected the police, because they live in the communities with them. They have carved empires for themselves, and they exert some level of control on these societies. So it's very difficult getting people to actually report to the police, especially when things go wrong.
But is that the fault of the police? Is that the fault of the police?
To a very large extent.
How is it so?
I have always indicated, like I said earlier, we have constricted it all to being reactive. The criminals have become so audacious, they've become so emboldened in the brazen manner in which they stage their attacks. So a clear message would have to be sent to them. In criminology, we have something called rational choice theory. It is simply based on the fact that before a criminal or a potential criminal goes ahead to perpetrate a crime, he's human. He's able to juxtapose the risk factors against the reward factors. So if the reward factors outweighs the risk factors, he's emboldened, he's motivated to commit it. But if the risk factors, such as the possibility of him getting caught in the process, is high, it outweighs the reward factors, obviously he will be disincentivized from even committing the crime in the first place. So this is a giant step in the right direction. However, it has to be sustained. So at least a clear message will be sent to these criminals to abstain from their illegal activities.
Sustaining it. Some people have said that if you're embarking on such a drive and you announce it, then you make the criminals aware, you alert them. What is the theory? What theory can we build around this?
Okay, now what we have to really concentrate on is to equip our intelligence gatherers with the requisite training and the equipment so they are able to gather intelligence from these flashpoints all across the country. So the next time we're going in there, we're not going to round up 200, 300 people, but we go to particular targets. I'm sure when we do that, I think it can also help to a very large extent. But going on a soup like this and rounding up so many people, it becomes quite a laborious process, profiling each and every one of them, then knowing who the bad guys are. It is also imperative that we collaborate with these communities, because the criminals live with the people in the communities. They know them. They do everything with them. So if we are able to harness the relationship between the people and the police based on mutual trust and respect, a lot more people should be willing to give critical intelligence to the police that would aid in, curbing the state of insecurity in the country.
Giving critical intelligence, one of the concerns that I have heard people raise is how they do not feel enough protection when they act as informants. So you'll have informants who feel that they've been exposed, for example, to the community, or they've been exposed to the criminals. How, if you were to advise the police, for example, would you advise that they deal with informants in these critical security times?
Well, I agree with you, hook, line, and sinker. Our witness protection regime in Ghana is something that doesn't motivate someone like me to give out information to the police. Because the problem is, you go give out the information, the next minute the whole neighborhood knows you are the mole, you are the rat amongst us. And that is not the way to go. I think we would have to invest more in the witness protection regime. When you go to other jurisdictions, you have people, if perhaps giving information to the police, if their safety is not very assured, they move them from their current locations, they give them proper accommodation, they give them jobs, they give them monthly stipends, etc. But in Ghana, it is not so. And I've always indicated that most of these operations is intelligence-led. And where does the police get the intelligence? From the people. So if you don't motivate the people to give you the intelligence, obviously a lot of people would not want to do that. Secondly, most of the information people give to the police is not something that is really seriously looked at.
Okay.
And that is enough to discourage people from even giving out the information. And in the 1980s in the United States, there was a theory in criminology that was developed called the broken glass theory. It is based on the fact that as minor as an offense it is for someone to break a glass, if nothing is done about it, it might morph into something much more serious. So going forward, the police would really need to be capacitated enough so they are able to follow up on all cases that is brought before them. In 2004, for example, there was a report that indicated that the police investigates about only 20% of cases brought before them. And that is not finding closure, just investigation. So invariably, that might mean finding closure to about 10%. So the likelihood, exactly. So the likelihood that if you perpetrate a crime, you'll be left off the hook means 95%. And that is not good enough.
That's not good enough. And that's a very bad place for us to be. Again, it will be very bad for us to have a police force that is not respected. A police force that is looked down upon, especially by this criminal. So in a nutshell, the thing you said about informants being protected and given you know, some sort of stipend, etc., give them a place to live, wouldn't that rather expose them to the communities? Because if we live with you and all of a sudden some criminals were arrested and all of a sudden we see you living somewhere else, having a better life when we were all like hustlers, you know, wouldn't it rather expose them?
I mean, there's a way they do it. There are so many ways. Okay. For example, perhaps the person has had a job and the job required that he moves. And when you move, they make you change your social media handles. A lot about you changes. They can even give you a new identity altogether. Okay. But I've always been very categorical. Without the people taking part in the security maintenance process, the police cannot do their job. We have a police population of about 32,000. Police civilian ratio, 1 officer to about 900 Ghanaians. In urban areas, it's even more staggering. So that means we cannot have the police everywhere all the time. Hence, the need for the people to be part of that process. So the question is, how do you get them to be part of that process? By enhancing your witness protection regime, by reaching out to the people. How many officers do we have going around our neighborhoods, knocking on doors and asking us what our menacing security challenges are and what they can do to help? There's a disconnect between the police and the Ghanaian population. Not very long ago, my center, the Center for Human Security and Peace Building, we did a survey of Ghanaians. We, basically finding out what their assumptions and perceptions are about the police. And it is not something that we can be proud of. Something
that requires a lot more work. But you describe this move as a giant step in dealing with criminality, but also a step that ought to be sustained. Well, hopefully it will be sustained. If you have any final words, we'll take that.
Well, I'd just like to make an appeal to all of Ghanaians. Like I indicated, the police cannot do their work without you. You should be a friend of the police. You should be alert, be security conscious in your communities. When you see strange people moving, young men especially, renting a large building, living there alone, driving unregistered vehicles, not working during the day, only at night, behaving in a suspicious manner, moving logistics suspiciously, you have every reason to report to the police. So generally, I think we all have a role to play. It shouldn't just be the work of the police, even at the personal level. If you live in the house, you are not staying there alone. We are so fond of leaving the keys either under the doormat or on top of the door, in the flower pot or under the flower pot. So generally, we have to help ourselves before calling the police to do that as well.
So, I mean, security, as they say, is a shared responsibility. You do your part, the police does its part, and at the end of the day, the entire country is protected. So hopefully this will last. We'll be keeping an eye on it, and then we'll tell you how it's going as we go along. But Adib Saani is the Executive Director of the Center for Human Security and Peace Building. They're helping us with that analogy or some analysis on the police intervention to deal with crime. Thank you very much for coming once again.
Thank you.